Scary Recaps presents Antlers from 2021. Beware of spoilers. A woman narrates a tale about the Wendigo, an evil spirit created from man's greed and abuse of nature. As the story begins in the small and isolated town of Cispus Falls in central Oregon, Frank Weaver enters a deserted mine where he runs a meth lab together with his partner. Frank's son, Aidan, is waiting for him outside in his father's truck. The two men enter the mine and see many charms and several interesting items hanging from the ceiling with the purpose of warding off evil spirits. Low, guttural noise in the dark draws their attention before an unseen creature attacks them both. Aidan is startled by the sounds he hears and exits the truck. He calls his father in vain. At that point, there is no indication as to their fate. 3 weeks later, Julia Meadows, a teacher, is talking in her class about old fables. She is concerned for Lucas Weaver, Frank's eldest son, because one of his classmates, Clint Owens, taunts him. Lucas is a strange boy with unusual behavior. He tracks down and kills small animals and takes them home to feed them to an unknown creature that snarls and pounds behind a locked door. Julia goes to her house and meets up with her brother, Paul, who so happens to be the sheriff of Cispus Falls. They talk about her recovery from alcohol addiction due to their father's abusive manners in the past. There's an insinuation here that perhaps Julia was raped by her mentally ill father before ultimately leaving home. She feels sorry for that decision, having abandoned her brother. Later on, another day in the classroom, Lucas shares a story about 3 bears, him being the little bear, his brother, Aidan, the baby bear, and his father, Frank, the big bear. In that fashion, he reveals that his brother and father are sick and that he has to take care of them now. Julia is deeply worried by this tale, and after school tries to speak with Lucas about his past, fearing that the boy is being abused and is too shy to confess. Lucas gets nervous and asks her to stay away, but Julia follows him anyway. Back at home, Lucas tends to his family. Frank is affected by that thing that attacked him in the mine, making him eat dead flesh. And Aidan is sick as well. They both stay behind that locked door at all times, and Lucas is feeding them with animal corpses. In the meantime, Julia confesses her worries about Lucas to her brother Paul and Ellen Booth, the school principal, who strongly advise against any indiscreet approach from her side. Julia, however, visits Lucas's house only to be alarmed by a strange growl from within. Afterward, former sheriff Warren Stokes finds half the carcass of Frank's partner in the woods. Together with Paul, they locate the other half inside the deserted mine, along with a piece of broken antler. Paul informs his sister, Julia, of their findings, and she gets worried about Lucas and his family. She proposes to Ellen to go to the Weavers and speak with Frank. Ellen enters the unlocked and untidy house and finds the room where Frank and Aidan are kept. She opens the door and Frank pounces at her, killing her, biting and devouring pieces of her like a feral animal. Terror takes its true form then as antlers start to emerge from Frank's body. Meanwhile, Lucas, who is walking back home, passes through the woods where he is confronted by Clint, furious at him for putting dog feces in his backpack. When Clint goes to harass Lucas, his father, Frank, now a horrible, antlered monster, appears and brutally kills the boy. Lucas is frightened and runs back to his house. With Ellen missing, Julia and Paul drive to the Weavers to see what has happened. They discover Ellen's remains and Frank's burnt-up corpse. Aidan is nowhere to be found. When Lucas returns home, he is immediately taken to the hospital, where Julia and Paul learn that the boy is dehydrated, poorly fed, and shows signs of abuse. The next day, Paul and Julia visit Warren and show him the disturbing drawings Lucas has made. The nightmarish figure in these rough sketches remind Warren of a lost fable. He confronts a book and tells the siblings of the story of the Wendigo, an Algonquin legend that speaks of a man who has tasted human flesh in the past and was turned into a monstrous and evil spirit that jumps from one person to another. The only way for this obscenity to be killed is when it feeds. Clint's body is found in the woods, and Lucas is being discharged from the hospital. Julia tells him that his father is dead and forbids him from going home. Lucas mentions to her that his father is coming for him to take him below where the mine where Aidan is. Despite Julia's warnings, Lucas runs to the mine. Julia, Paul, and fellow officer Dan LaCroix follow him. Once there, Dan finds Aidan inside a box. He is in a very bad state, very weak and sick. Dan is not aware of the trap laid around him as the monster appears and impales him with its antlers, killing him. A little while after, Paul finds Dan's body, only to be pierced by the beast in his arm and left barely conscious. Lucas then escapes into the mine and Julia runs to her brother. The beast recoils in the dark. Julia helps her brother Paul, and together they follow Lucas deeper into the mine. Julia discovers Lucas and Aidan, and at close proximity, the antlered monster feasting on a dead bear. Indeed, Frank Weaver is the Wendigo. Julia realizes, and at that moment decides to act. Having taken her brother's gun with her, she attacks the beast. A terrible fight ensues. Julia is wounded by the Wendigo, but Lucas distracts the monster with a flare while Julia stabs it in its chest multiple times, eventually ripping its heart out. But, unfortunately, the evil spirit passes then into Aidan's body, then starts glowing with a red light, just like his father did before he was transformed. The Wendigo spirit cannot be easily vanquished. Lucas pleads for his brother's life, but he sees that there's no other choice, so he lets Julia stab Aidan to death before the boy can turn into the Wendigo. At the break of dawn, Julia, Paul, and Lucas are seen walking away from the hideous scene. Julia tells her brother that she intends to look after Lucas for a while, staying with him and keeping an eye on whether the curse has really ended. Julia and Lucas walk on ahead while Paul falls behind, starting to cough. A black bile comes out of his throat, an undeniable sign that he has been infected, just like Frank when he was first possessed by the evil Wendigo spirit.